Welcome back. You're watching Newslink on ENCA. And this is a story that stayed with me for so many days after I read it. It was like a war zone. It'll be a day that will stay with Dr. Suhayl Essa forever. He was helping out at the Hillbrow Community Health Centre when the riots broke out in central Johannesburg. And chaos quickly consumed the clinic as it was bombarded with dozens of patients seeking treatment for rubber bullet wounds, gunshot and stab wounds. And then the fights broke out in the wards. But Dr. Essa would still go on to work a 14-hour-long shift. Well, he's agreed to speak to us this morning. Doctor, I know that you don't like to be called heroes. It drives you guys mad. But just describe the scenes that you witnessed on Monday.
Thank you for having me on the show, Annika. As I mentioned in that initial article, it felt like a war zone. It truly felt like I was in hell and seeing the worst that humans are capable of.
Doctor, paint a picture for me. What was the scene like?
Well, I was on shift on Sunday morning. It started at about 8 o'clock, and nothing would have led me to believe that the day would turn out in the manner that it did. It started off with just regular patients. There were 1 or 2 COVID patients, people seeking treatment for minor issues, and then from around midday, the violence began. We would hear screams, we would hear people running, we would hear gunshots, people running in every direction, screaming, and then in a few minutes they would be in the clinic. I'll never forget the first guy that walked in, said, I've been shot in my eye, I've lost my eye. And he thought he had his eye in his pocket, and he pulls out a rubber bullet which was lodged in his eye. That was a very common scene that occurred for most of the rest of the day. There was innocent bystanders that were shot. There were often also a lot of the mob and the rioters that were also involved and were victims and also were seeking treatment. The situation became very violent even inside the clinic. Patients began demanding that they get treated immediately. It wasn't just violence that was related to the looting and the retribution from police. It became almost xenophobic. There were a lot of foreign nationals that would come in with stab wounds. They were telling me that people would come knocking on their doors, know that they're foreign nationals, and as soon as they opened the door, they would stab them. It was truly something I've never seen before in my life.
How did you manage to, A, work on patients who were suffering from extreme trauma wounds and keep calm throughout it all?
I think if you're a doctor in South Africa, you're always trained to be fit in combat medicine. It's an average month end for us, but this was something different. I think we always tell ourselves that you've got to keep calm. You've got to just try and find yourself in this sea of chaos. And I think I just tried my best to save who I could and to help who I could, and to try and make sense of all of this. But it was very distressing.
Doctor, did you have any backup from police or security at the clinic?
Eventually, we had to. My shift was supposed to end at 8 p.m. I was hoping that I would leave calmly and peacefully, but that didn't seem like it was the case. There was a mob that was outside the clinic. We weren't sure exactly what was happening. We could hear screams. We could hear the security clashing with them. We had called the police because I didn't feel safe even leaving the clinic at that point. The police were obviously very inundated with multiple calls, and so eventually they arrived. By that time, there were so many, intoxicated, violent people inside the clinic. Fights began to break out. Patients, families, and members of people that have deceased were fighting with each other. It honestly was just a chaotic scene. And thankfully, eventually, police arrived around 9:15, and they began arresting people inside the clinic. They dispersed the mob that was loitering outside. And yeah, if it wasn't for them arriving that time, I honestly don't know if I'd be having this interview with you today.
Doctor, before we go, with deep respect, you seem very tired.
Yes, I mean, it's been a rough week. We're in the middle of a third wave pandemic, not to mention now this. The whole reason for alcohol bans, the whole reason for curfews was so that we could limit the amount of trauma that our hospitals have to normally bear. And the fact that this is going on just defeats the purpose. It completely defeats the purpose. Now we're having to deal with COVID on top of very, very ill and injured people. So I truly, I'm trying to be optimistic for the future, but I don't know how we're going to get through all of this. Honestly, I don't. The situation was already dire. We were already running out of resources. We were already low on oxygen, low on hospital beds. The hospital that I am based and employed at, Joburg Gen, Charlotte Maxeke Academic Hospital, it has been shut for the last 3 months. One of the biggest hospitals in South Africa, and a quaternary facility that's used to treat many COVID patients and has COVID ICUs, has been closed. And so already Gauteng was in such a dire state in terms of our health department. And this is going to really, really take it one step further.
Doctor, we embrace you, and we just envelop you with so much strength and warmth here from all of us as a country. Thank you so much for speaking to us. A very moving account there of absolute chaos, a war zone-like clinic in Hillbrow on Monday. Well, that was Dr. Suhayl Essa, and we wish him all the best with his team.